Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with our weekly P&Q&C&A&T videos. This is season 6, episode 29. For those of you who don't know, those letters are all just a glorified version of Q&A. We don't explain every letter every time.
Well, let's just say it.
The important part is P for podcast and for the patrons who support us on Patreon that allow us to put this up in a podcast format that you can reach if you're on the video right now by clicking the links in the description for all the major platforms.
I'm going to just go ahead. Podcast, questions, comments, answers, and talk.
Yeah, and that's just so that we can be sort of anal retentive about it and technical and not miss anything. So any sort of user input and any output counts within the title of the podcast.
Right.
So our first question comes from Frolic Fox, and they say, "Hey guys, my killer MP team currently is Batgirl, Cassandra Cain, Elite 5, with League of Assassins and Knives, Scythe, Totem, Batgirl, Prime, Elite 8, with LexCorp Chest, Astro Harness, and then in brackets only 2 years, and Wonder Woman 600, Elite 6, with Quake Engine, and Mother Box, again only 2 gears. I'm able to blow off Black Knight, Lantern, Red Suns, Arkham Origins / Knight, Flashpoint, Earth 2, and Metal character teams with much ease. I frequently rank in top 1%, and my best rank is 241. The problem here is how much ever I play, I am not able to rank below 100. I play Ultimate Battles only. I need to hear your opinions on this team, and can also suggest some modifications to this, as I will be able to rank below 100. If possible, and if you're satisfied with this multiplayer team, you can also mention this in the next Q&A session and demonstrate. Waiting for a response, guys."
Yeah, okay, so, I mean, it's not bad, for sure. I think it's missing a few things, and that might be a limitation of the gears available, because if your main specialist is going to do the special one, League of Assassins Knives, and Necron's Scythe, Cloak of Destiny is actually better because of the little bit of extra boost on critical hits.
Mm-hmm.
And because you're hoping that she's never going to take enough damage that she's going to need the other abilities of the Scythe to do extra damage when her health is really low. I think it's something like 15% or something. And Batgirl Prime, who's got more damage, you're missing out because she could actually be as good as that load with Cassandra Cain Batgirl if you switched them over. And because LexCorp Chest and Astro Harness, given that she's your highest elite, she might not be your strongest, but she's your highest elite, and she's geared to be mostly defensive.
Yeah.
And I guess Wonder Woman 600 with the more, the Mother Box. I mean, that's interesting because it's more of a support kind of thing to get rid of the first player's power.
Yeah.
I'd probably want Cloak of Destiny, and one on Batgirl, one on each of the Batgirls, the Cloak of Destiny and Necron's Scythe, so at least they can do a lot of damage. But I think the bottom line for the question about getting a better rank than 241 or even getting the top 100, at that level, I think it's really just a matter of how much time you're willing to put in.
Yeah, because you don't get a ton from defense. You don't get there's no way to get a team that puts you in the top 100 instead of like a amount of time playing, right? Because if you have a team that's giving you good battle points and relatively fast and consistently, then there's no real other secret sauce, right? There's nothing else you can do other than play.
And I think with this team, the way it's elited, you're getting close to, if not full, max battle points anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, because they're older characters, their stats might not be high enough, but Batgirl Prime at E8 almost makes up for the other not being quite at E7.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad team, but I think we've also demonstrated over the years that there's lots of good teams.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately the best one is the one that you're seeing right now, just because for the time you put in, you're going to get more battle points because they're faster fights.
Yeah, and I mean, for an easy way to make your team a little bit better, it's just gearing them up fully, right?
Yep.
Like having gear, really almost any gear, right? Any gear that boosted a damage type would make your battles faster. Right? When you have 2 gears on them, right? Anytime you're theoretically maybe doing that damage type, so you'd probably be doing basic and specials no matter who it was, right?
Right.
So those would have the potential to make some battles faster sometimes, right?
Yep.
And that would be good. Gearing them specifically to your playstyle and what type of damage you're dealing with the most often would make things even faster, right?
We really should do that video. I mean, I think we've got some pretty good footage just showing you the viewer meaning. the greatest way to farm effectively and to get the best use of your time and rank as high as you can for the time that you're able and willing to play.
Mm-hmm. So there you go. I think that's everything.
Mm-hmm.
Our next question comes from AwesomeGamer241. And they say, would you be willing to take recordings from your iOS viewers of glitches that work on iOS and post it on your channel? I'm not sure how someone would send you the videos, but I think it would be pretty interesting.
So this was sort of an open-ended question.
Yeah.
I promised Zylok, or sorry, not Zylok, that's the next question, Awesome Gamer, that we would talk about this, because it's an interesting idea, but I think logistically it would be hard to actually pull off.
Yeah, I think the thing about it is that we would not be speaking from perspective of knowledge about it, right? So it would be basically us sort of re-hosting somebody else's thing. And so it'd be hard if we were doing voiceover, right?
Right.
Because we would be sort of taking somebody else's steps at face value, right?
Right.
And it would be, because for our videos, the way that they all sort of, especially for glitches, right, need testing and sort of fiddling around with.
I think that's where we add the value, actually, is our testing of stuff.
We need to work pretty closely with whoever it was. And if we didn't, what we'd essentially be doing is taking somebody's ad revenue for doing very little work ourselves, right? It would be a weird sort of iffy process.
We'd be diluting our brand a little bit, too, because I think part of our brand isn't just being the first with glitches. It's not even necessarily glitches, but the fact that we test them enough that we have an understanding of why it might work and how different variations would not or would work.
Yeah. I think what we would be willing to do is signal boost people who did have iOS glitches, who brought them into us. I think I would be totally willing to maintain like a playlist of like iOS glitches, right, that people sent into us, and say that we can't personally vouch for them, right, but these are ones that are purportedly currently working. I'd be more okay with that.
See, then that little sort of not qualification, but that warning about how we can't test them, I think it's still, to me, it's a little bit problematic, only because we're not doing anything with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's an integral, or as some people say, integral, tomato, part of what we do.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. If we're just sending links, we're really also not getting anything from them. You know what I mean?
That's true.
That's I think the thing is that I would be willing to maintain a playlist to other channels, right? Because you can do that. You can make playlists without your own videos in it. And I would probably be willing to maintain a playlist in the same way that we like put comments in our description from viewers, right? With information.
So how would you distinguish between the ones that are actually good and the ones that aren't? Like, you'd have to watch a bunch of videos.
Videos sent from other people?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that you're right, too, in which we couldn't just sort through, like, a big list. I don't know how logistically that would work, right?
Because there's, every once in a while I get a link from somebody saying, hey, what do you think of this video?
Yeah.
And sometimes I take a look and sometimes I don't. And almost without fail, because lately there hasn't been anything good, almost without fail, it'll be something where they've linked, like, an old video, or it'll be something where there's been cuts in the video, so it doesn't seem like it's legitimate, but I can't really tell because they've edited it so much.
Yeah.
And because I can't test it for myself, I can't really judge the legitimacy.
That's true. So, I mean, I guess I'm not willing to say that we'd make a habit of it, but I think if we saw a video and it looked good, right, and it was a glitch for iOS, I think I would be willing to, like, link it in the description. You know what I mean? Like, it would still be like a case-by-case basis, and I don't think, you're right, we probably couldn't make any sort of guarantees about it, right?
Right.
About whether or not we do it, right? It's not something that I'd be willing to, like, set up, like, as a service, I think, inherently. But I think that's, for Awesome Gamer 241's point, I think that's the closest we'd get.
Yeah, and I think there has to be
videos on
there
our
has to be
channel.
at least a little bit of maybe not editing, but sort of editorial oversight, because to me, I think if there's going to be a glitch video that I'm willing to endorse, never mind the glitch, if there's a glitch video I'm willing to endorse, I think they need to do a reasonable job of explaining it, and at least some kind of warning about how things might go wrong if there's a chance of that.
Yeah. So, that's probably, I think it's unlikely that that's going to happen. But just as sort of my best way to address your question, I think that's the only scenario that I see us sort of doing something similar.
Yeah.
I mean, the closest thing.
We've considered things before that we initially said no to. We've done things, actually, that we've initially said no to, and maybe with a bit more thought, because this is the first time I think somebody's even brought up the idea.
Yeah.
interesting, but maybe we're just not ready for it right at this moment.
Yeah, because I wouldn't really want to take ad revenue, right? I really wouldn't want to take content out of somebody else's hands is, I think, the main thing, right? Because it would be way too much work to find some way of distributing ad revenue to people who did it. That would be more work than it was worth even to upload it in the first place. But it also would feel wrong to me to either do the work to vet it and put it up and not monetize it, or to monetize it exclusively for ourselves. I think there's no sort of solution in there that feels like great to me, right? For that actually ends up going up on our channel, not to mention even the fact that it would be so much harder for us to be willing to put something up on our channel, right?
Yeah, like I guess so.
A process.
When you mentioned the ad revenue, I think with how restrictive YouTube is, there are probably very few viewers who can meet the requirement for the minimum requirement to get ad revenue.
Yeah, so
who would even want to share it with us and not just post it on their own channel and get the attention that they need.
Yeah, but to me, that's the thing where it's like, just because somebody else can't access ad revenue from their content, if we're accessing ad revenue from their content, it still feels unfair.
Oh yeah, definitely we owe them that. If
yeah,
that's
we would owe them that, and it's not worth the work to figure that out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. I totally agree with that.
Yeah. So there we go. I hope that answers your question. The next question comes from Zylock, and they say, thanks for the vid. You said that silver characters are worth promoting and cheaper. Which 3 silver do you think I should get?
So to point out first, right, that when you get the stats of a silver up to Elite 10, level 60, you're working with the equivalent of maybe Elite 3 golds. And they're definitely good enough to be able to get bonus battle 6 when you get them there.
Yeah.
Way cheaper to get because you can buy them directly from the store at a fraction of the cost of a gold.
Yeah.
And they're all, with the exception of Nightfall Bane, they're all, I think, available straight up.
Yeah, which is pretty good for people who want specific characters.
Right. So the first thing I should point out is that we've got a playlist, and I think we call them Better Than Golds, of silver teams. Not better than golds, as good as golds.
Good as gold sounds like something we'd say.
Yeah. And they're silver teams that we've eluded to show you that we taking this through multiplayer, and link is in the description in the top right corner. And each time we've always used Wonder Woman, Regime Green Lantern, and Regime Nightwing. Mm-hmm. And so
just because Nightwing's silver's passive is actually significantly better than, I think, a lot of gold's passives.
Right. So it's actually, to me, it's interesting. It's sort of like a variation of Batman Ninja Batman, because Batman Ninja Batman does takes half the damage when he's outnumbered, but Regime Nightwing takes half the damage on basic attacks all the time, but takes full special damage. And I think I'd actually rather have Regime Nightwing's passive,
especially because his first special is Power Drain.
Yeah. So it makes him easily the tank, whether you gear him that way or not. Because if you gear him that way, you can actually get him to take no basic damage, and very little special damage.
And if you give him stuff like Ibis Stick, his special 1 is actually still pretty equally powerful no matter who you're fighting, and can chunk out some damage while you're still preventing specials from hitting you. So you can sort of, if you engineer him right, he can be a really good mix of special specialist, just because it's special 1, right? Not damage dealing special specialist, but special specialist, basic attack, and tank, sort of all rolled into one, right? Where his special is sort of what makes him a tank, right? And his special and passive together is what make him a tank, and then it frees him up to deal basic damage without too much threat of retribution.
Raging Green Lantern, for sure. I mean, we've used him even on gold teams, on teams that we're trying to max out our battle
otherwise
points.
Gold teams.
Right. Because his passive of power generation, even though it seems like it's not that much, I think it's like 25%.
Yeah.
Boost to power gen. It doesn't change the matchmaking. So, for example, animated Harley Quinn will boost power gen by 20% and damage by 20%. Yeah. However, the boosted damage is actually factored into matchmaking.
Yeah, so it's another hidden stat.
And the 25% power gen boost seems like it's not a lot over 20%, but in practice, it feels like it's a lot faster.
Yeah, it's noticeably faster, and fights are quicker when you have him, and you're not, like, for example, in like a good run with Tantu Totem, where you're getting your energy back, right?
Right. And Wonder Woman, the Silver Wonder Woman is amazing because because her passive lets her boost her specials damage when she blocks. It doesn't actually take much time before she's boosted her damage the 3 times.
Yeah.
And she can do a buttload of damage using her specials.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. Now, there's also other good options. I mean, the thing is, they're all kind of available, so there's nobody sort of, excuse me, off limits. But
yeah, in the same way that a gold character is.
Right.
So when you say which is the best silver character, we're really looking from the entire pool of all silver characters when we're answering.
So Black Adam's interesting because as the original Regime Black Adam Gold, he's sort of a bottom tier gold. Yeah. Low damage, low stats, low health. But the silver Black Adam, he's kind of a top tier silver.
Yeah.
He's got high stats and he's fast. He's wicked fast. He could be an alternative basic damage dealer. And Regime Flash. I don't actually even care about the passive where he boosts the speed of everybody on the team, because it almost seems like it doesn't matter. But I just like using Flash. He does a good amount of basic damage. He was actually the first, I mean, if I can reminisce, he was the first character that I bought directly from the store just because I wanted him.
Yeah, because he was good for grinding.
Even though he seemed like, at the time, it seemed really expensive.
Yeah, because that was at the point where that was like a day worth of grinding almost. Or at least an hour.
Right, when you're starting with just bronzes. And
you have to wait, right? This was at a time where we couldn't actually even just like play nonstop. We would run out of energy too fast.
Yeah, and I mean, the glitches there for energy recharges were available. We just didn't know them yet, and we just played it straight up. Grinding bronze, finishing bonus battle 1 over and over again so that we could buy packs.
That was a slow going time.
But I think it actually makes you appreciate the game a lot more when you've had that experience, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people who are coming in immediately and wanting to have like the best characters and the best everything, the best gears and everything to start, I think, well, actually, that leads us to the next question, doesn't it?
That's true. Do we want to just start with the next question
all right.
then? Okay, so this is our next and final thing that we're going to talk about to finish it up. This is from Michael Myers, and they say, worst mobile game and gaming company ever created. Injustice 1 Mobile is the worst. You want to like it, but augmenting/upgrading characters is overkill. Their survivor mode is beyond gross, and you have to play survivor mode to upgrade your characters. Their rewards are jokes. Minor cards and XP cards are your rewards. You'll have to play 24 hours a day for 6 months straight just to max out one character.
I just want to point out, too, it's an interesting spelling of Michael. I don't know why, but Michael is typically spelled Michael. Yeah. It's because the AE is an interesting diphthong, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think you see it too many other places in proper English. Like, you see it as optional, like in anesthesia or pediatrics.
Yeah.
But in names or other words, it's uncommon. But
or pedophile.
Is that PAE?
Yeah, you can spell it both ways.
Pediatrics. Okay. Okay, not that we're saying anything about Michael. But anyways, Michael is spelled Micheal, which is, even though it's more common... it's a more common way of seeing AE combined or EA in English. It's the less common version of Michael.
Interesting. Okay, so I noticed that.
Yeah.
And this is a corollary to some other questions. So, 3 weeks ago, a month ago, 4 and 5 months ago, Michael has left comments on our channel, basically asking for, help getting people augmented, maxed out. Sure, you can.
I need a maxed out 1060 everyone account. Can you help, man? And then that was 3 weeks ago. So a month ago, I want to buy a maxed out account.
Yeah.
And then 4 months ago, can you help me, man? Please, I need help. Max out augmenting my characters. X60. Can you help me, please, bro? And then the earliest one from 5 months ago, I need a maxed out account on Android. Can anyone please help me?
Yeah, and so, I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with, like, wanting sort of the later game stuff, and there's nothing wrong with either not having enough time or energy or not enjoying the game enough to sort of get to that point. But I think, like, characterizing the developers as evil and the game as bad is not maybe fair to them, especially considering that, it's, no matter how you cut it, right? At least you're still engaged with the game from 5 months ago, even if you're only coming to our videos to comment about getting content, right? And it's given you free content that really you have no sort of onus to keep playing.
Let me point out the two sort of sides to this, I think.
Yeah.
On the one hand, I think definitely the way the game exists now, it's not welcoming to new players.
Yeah, it's gotten worse and worse with the monetization, I should say. They actually have actively made their monetization worse over the lifespan.
But back when the game was, the max was level 40, Elite 5.
Yeah.
It didn't take you that long to max out. You could finish, there's only 6 levels of battles offline. It didn't take you that long to max it out. And getting there was not such a big deal. And because they progressively increased the limits, it felt like it was almost a natural progression, and each time it wasn't that big. So when people come in and it's the maximum's already Elite 10 level 60, I can see why such a huge jump disparity between where you start and where you could potentially end up might seem frustrating.
I think what happened is the game used to be a lot of content for completionists, and the game is no longer for completionists at all, I think.
Yeah, and that's sort of the other side of the coin, where I think maybe if you're just starting out and you're a completionist, which we used to be, maybe this game is not for you. And I think we've had to reevaluate the way we play the game a bit.
Yeah, because you can't augment every character. And not only do you not want to augment them for half their stats, even if you're just doing crit chance and crit damage, there's no way you could ever augment every character.
And so you can see by just a team that we're playing with, we are not Elite 10, we are not level 60, we are Elite 5, not even Elite 7, Elite 5, level 50. We've kept our extra copies of all of these Flashpoint cards off because this team is fast for multiplayer.
Yeah.
It gets maximum battle points.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun to play because when the matchmaker in multiplayer gives us a variety of teams to face.
Yeah, and this is a very far cry from where we used to be, where we would have everything maxed out, and then every time a new update came out, we would try to max everything out again as fast as possible.
Right.
Right? So the way that we used to play was totally centered around having everything maxed out, right? Yeah. And then once we had that playing sort of within it. And now we have to basically just have only the stuff maxed out that we like, and we have played long enough that we can actually augment for crit chance and damage way more than I think probably more than I ever expected I would be able to.
And the dirty secret really is that even when we demonstrate a new team with max crit chance and crit damage, it's often we do that temporarily. If it's not something that we enjoy that much, we'll revert to a recent save and bring them back and save reuse our crit damage and crit chance.
Our third-party saves are basically a test environment for us.
Right.
And so we lose out on whatever time we spend playing, but we have the scarcity of augments is such that it makes way more sense to revert days or even weeks than it does to augment a single character that we don't want to.
And also secondary accounts to test for stuff that we might want to actually leave it like that and be able to play different variations in different teams.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, this is a good demonstration, like with these comments from Michael Myers. Remember what I said earlier about how there's almost an aspirational quality to some of the videos, or at least how people enjoy them?
Yeah.
I mean, most games, I shouldn't say most games. This game specifically, you can't do everything.
Yeah.
It just takes too much time. And it's only because we've invested, you say 6 months. We've been at it for what, more than 5 years now?
Yeah.
Does it? When
and
I say that, it seems ridiculous.
I think when he was talking about 6 months for one character, I think that is probably a pretty unreasonable estimate. Especially when you're talking about playing 24 hours straight. I think it would take significantly less time than that to max somebody all the way out.
At this point, because we spent hundreds of hours on it, I'm not really prepared to either do the calculation, never mind actually.
24 hours for 6 months straight for one character? Because we have not spent 24 hours 6 months straight, I think, total, have we?
But it depends on what you're doing, right? Like, so let's say you were starting from the very beginning again, and you weren't using any glitches. I guess that's the other qualifier, right? If you weren't using any glitches.
There was a time when there was survival glitches, and you better believe we banked up on stuff from that.
Yeah, that's one of the issues, too, is never mind people who haven't had access to glitches. Even people who've had access don't prioritize them properly.
Yeah.
And they have a great glitch, and then the week after it gets patched, hey, is there a new glitch? I need more power credits, or I need more
Yeah, 'cause
whatever.
it's so easy. A lot of the resources, there's some in-game place that's basically just like a resource vacuum for that to get whatever good stuff.
I'm going to tell this story again, and this is really only for the new reviewers who haven't heard it yet. But when we first understood the challenge reset, I actually gave my hands probably repetitive strain injury. My arms were hurting for weeks from spending one full weekend resetting the challenge for the not good dark side.
Yeah.
So I could just play it over and over, farm credits, farm copies, and sell the dark side so I could have power credits to buy stuff.
Yeah, it's so long ago to think about, because that was right at the sort of beginning of our channel, that it was a really, really sort of exciting game to you, right? When we first to both of us when we first started playing.
Yeah, it's it's funny because of just how the difference in our interests, that this was that one area that intersected, so we could both really create a couple of accounts that were pretty darn good.
Yeah, I think before that we had Pokemon.
That's true, but Pokemon was specific. Like it was maybe not nearly as ubiquitous because we only had one. At the point, we only had one DS.
Yeah.
And we were working on the same account, but we couldn't play at the same time.
Yeah, except for our Game Boys were Fire Red and Leaf Green.
Oh, that's true. That was a while ago. That was before the DS. We had the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
Okay, yep, for sure.
So that was not the same account, and you reset the games over and over again to get all the legendary dogs.
Yes.
And all the legendary birds.
Starting with different starters.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
because we had trading cables.
Yeah.
That's a throwback.
Yeah, I still have the packaging for those because I thought... You know what's interesting to me as a collector and somebody with obsessive-compulsive tendencies is that as I do more of this, the collectibles that actually become the most valuable are a combination of something that's desirable and something that's really legitimately ephemeral, where people treat it like garbage, don't keep it in good condition.
Yeah.
And you see that in toys now, where sometimes the toy has value, but if you have packaging that's in good condition, it's almost as valuable as the toy itself.
Yeah, because people never keep the packaging. The main demographic for the toy initially was the packaging, so if you find one in the packaging, it's basically somebody who bet all those years ago that it would maintain value.
Or they packed it away
luck.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they just... It was stock that they had in the back room, and they just never sold it. They found it years later. This is what kills me. All right, so this bugs me a little bit. One of the most valuable books that I used to own was the first print edition of Orson Scott Card's Ender's Game in hardcover. Not the second edition where he did it like years later and added some material.
Yeah.
But this was the first... and I won't go into the story why I don't have that hardcover anymore, but the reason why I got it was because... All right, so Orson Scott Card at the time, before I knew he was a bit of a not great human being.
A bit of a big homophobe.
Yeah, but he seemed like a nice guy, but he was doing a signing at BACA in Toronto, so that's a science fiction fantasy specialty bookstore.
Yeah.
And BACA found in the back a box full of first print hardcovers of Ender's Game that they just hadn't pulled out. And this was when it had already won some awards. Speaker for the Dead had already come out and won.
So it had already basically become valuable.
Yeah, not nearly as valuable as now, but then I was able to pick up a copy. They sold it at cover price, which was really good of them.
Yeah, because they've already probably could have sold it for more at that point.
Yeah. Obviously this was years before there was any even hint of a movie. But it's funny to me how when a book becomes a TV show or movie, like, Game of Thrones.
Yeah, even though Ender's Game was not a great movie by, I think, most accounts, right?
Right.
It was just okay.
But all you need is the audience, because it's literally orders of magnitude bigger audience that gets exposed to it.
Yeah.
And the people that were interested in it as a book only, suddenly you've got an audience, hundreds, thousands of people bigger that are interested in wanting to read the book. Yeah,
it's interesting because I saw... my friend got like a business card from somebody recently that they were like a book blog or whatever, and so I checked it out and I read one of the reviews. In the first review, they had gotten an advanced reading copy for something, and it was the review I think was only a couple days old, right? So on blogs I think the rate at which you get views is a little different.
Right.
But it had like 15 views only on it, and they had gotten an advanced reading copy, and so it's and we have been able to secure advanced reading copies, right, for books at one time or another, doing something that was barely related, right? Basically saying we'll put at the end of the video some information about your book, right? So the actual like sort of audience that you need for books, right? The amount of people you need to attract to a book to make it worthwhile to send out stuff like that is so much smaller.
Right, because a successful book, a successful first printing is like what, 10,000 copies. A lot of first new novelists will get maybe like what, 2 to 3 or 4 or 4,000 copies.
I have no clue.
So I think a few hundred is significant, and I mean, that was one of the joys of having this channel, was being able to get books early, and we'd have to hustle a little bit for it. The hardest part wasn't actually getting the books early. The hardest part to me was reading it quickly enough to get a review out, like an informed review out before the publication date.
That's true. Oh, you know what I need to do? I promised a while ago. iProfit recommended a podcast, and I actually watched all the podcasts.
Which one was that?
Teacher's Pet. Or not watched, I listened to all of the podcasts, and I quite enjoyed it. But I need to do that at the top of a future episode, just as an opportunity for people to recommend media in that space if they want to, right? Where it's going to reach more people. We also don't have a lot of time right now to talk about it, but maybe next week I can talk about that in a little more detail, because I did say I would follow up when I listened to all of it, and I finished that a while ago, but I should have done my due diligence.
Right. The idea of getting a book ahead of time is great. The idea of reading it's a lot of fun. The problem is when there's a deadline associated with it, then it starts to feel like work. And if other things get in the way, it makes it hard to...
It's a little stressful when you've sort of got a responsibility to the people who gave you a free book.
Right. And, I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. I don't know. I showed you recently, right? So Good Omens, just finished watching on Amazon Prime. If anybody hasn't seen it and has access to it, I highly recommend it. Really good show. But I've got an advanced reading copy of the American edition of Good Omens. It's signed by both Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. And it's one of my prized possessions.
Yeah.
But part of why it's prized, it's just such a cool artifact.
Yeah.
Of a time, like, before it was nearly as popular. It was Neil Gaiman's first fiction, I think.
Yeah, because Good Omens has... I don't even know if it can be characterized as a cult following. I think the problem is...
He's mainstream now. Neil Gaiman's totally mainstream.
Yeah, but Good Omens, right? The show itself has sort of like... it's hard to... I don't even know if cult following has the same meaning now. Because it does for some stuff. Like, I think music, right? For music, there definitely still is, like, really, like, popular music that, like, a ton, like, masses of people listen to just because it comes up on the radio, basically, right? But for a lot of other media, for, like, TV shows, I don't even know if cult and mainstream mean anything anymore. Because it almost seems like the only things that you could call mainstream almost seem like they fit under, like, a different sort of header, right? Where the stuff that's, like, really mainstream, like Game of Thrones, right? Feels almost like a cultural phenomenon more than just, like, oh, yeah, it's mainstream, right? Like, mainstream music doesn't feel like a cultural phenomenon the same way that mainstream TV does, right?
Well, I'll put it differently, too, though. I think it's because stuff is fractured so much. So, 20 years ago, mainstream TV had 10 to 100 times the kind of following of what would be considered successful TV now.
Yeah.
So because it's fractured enough.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, where, like, it almost doesn't have the same sort of meaning, right?
Yeah, so popular is still less popular than it used to be. Cult is going to be even smaller, but everything's already smaller anyways.
Yeah. So I can't tell if Good Omens has a cult following or a mainstream following or what those mean, but I just know that there's a subset of the people who watch it who are, like, sort of who evangelize it and who, spend a lot of time thinking about it and who really enjoy it the way that I think you would normally think about, like, a sort of like a cult following, right? Where there's like a small group of people who watch it and the people who watch it like it a lot, right?
Yeah.
But I don't even know how big the group of people who follow it is, and I don't even know what the meaning of that would necessarily be.
Okay.
So there we go. That's sort of there's not a strong conclusion there. Yeah. We're coming up on the end of our footage. So right here at the end of the episode, we'd like to give a huge thank you to all the people who are supporting us on Patreon. Want to take it away?
Yeah, a big, big thank you to Console Peasant, who's supporting us at the highest tier, last word. John Auriemma at the Your Message Here tier. Shawn Farrell, Daniel Simonson, Aaron Mall, and now Michael DeVries, who support us on the credited level. And Eddie G, Chris Wolf, and Laszlo Georgiades at the gratitude level.
There we go. Thank you guys so much for your support, and we'll see you next time. Well, thanks so much to all of you guys for watching and or listening, too. We do appreciate you as well.
Komoda.